Well, good morning. Welcome to Coffee with the Pastor. We are studying the book of James, not James, but the book of Acts. And we have, Paul has made it to Jerusalem. And he's taken up an offering. He's wanted to go back to Jerusalem, obviously. And he's gotten there. He's been well received by James and by the elders. But there was one issue. A lot of the people had heard that he was teaching things that he really wasn't teaching. But they had heard that he was teaching everyone that they did not need to go to temple, that they didn't need to go, they didn't need to keep the Jewish customs, blah, blah, blah. And so James and the elders suggested to Paul that he go with some of theirs that were taking vows there at the temple. And apparently they were doing 7 days where they would go through the purification, I presuming probably at the pool of Siloam, and had their hair cut off. They would go and have a sacrifice at the temple every day. They suggested that Paul go with them and that Paul actually even pay for their sacrifices probably. And so Paul does this, and he's at the temple. And things are going well until some people from Asia, probably maybe Ephesus, who are Jews, see him. And they start grabbing him, yelling at him, and they get all the people wound up. And so the Roman guard who's in charge of that area comes and takes Paul. And they're about to take him up to be arrested into one of their rooms. And we pick it up from there in verse 37 of chapter 21. As the soldiers were about to take Paul into the barracks, he asked the commander, "May I say something to you?" "Do you speak Greek?" he replied. "Aren't you the Egyptian who started a revolt and led 4,000 terrorists out into the desert some time ago?" And the commander's surprised that he speaks Greek. He's got him confused with somebody else. And Paul answered, "No, I'm a Jew from Tarsus in Sicily, a citizen of no ordinary city. Please let me speak to the people." Having received the commander's permission, Paul stood on the steps and motioned to the crowd. When they were all silent, he said to them in Aramaic, that's their language. And in chapter 22, he gives his testimony. "Brothers and fathers, listen now to my defense." When they heard him speak to them in Aramaic, they became very quiet. Then Paul said, "I am a Jew, born in Tarsus of Sicily, but brought up in this city, in Jerusalem, under Gamaliel." Gamaliel was the top rabbi of his day, so Paul received the very best rabbinic training you could receive. "Under Gamaliel, I was thoroughly trained in the law of our fathers and was just as jealous for God as any of you are today. I persecuted the followers of the way." Notice that they're not called Christians, they're called the followers of the way, to their death, arresting both men and women and throwing them into prison, as also the high priest and all the council can testify. I even obtained letters from them to their brothers in Damascus and went there to bring these people as prisoners to Jerusalem to be punished. He said, "I'm like one of you. In fact, truthfully, we have a better education you do. I know more about the customs of our fathers. I know more about the Jewish faith than you know because I studied with Gamaliel." And it says, and he says, "And I was persecuting the church. I was on my way to Damascus to persecute the Jews there. But about noon, as I came near Damascus, suddenly a bright light from heaven flashed around me. I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to me, 'Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?' 'Who are you, Lord?' I asked. And he says, 'I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting,' he replied. My companions saw the light, but they did not understand the voice of him who was speaking to me. 'What shall I do?' I asked. 'Get up,' the Lord said, 'and go into Damascus. There you will be told all that you have been assigned to do.' My companions led me by the hand into Damascus because the brilliance of the light has blinded me." a man named Ananias came to see me. He was a devout observer of the law and highly respected by all the Jews living there. And he stood beside me and said, Brother Saul, receive your sight. And at that moment I was able to see. Then he said, the God of our fathers has chosen you to know his will and to see the righteous one and to hear words from his mouth. You will be his witness to all men of what you have seen and heard. And now what are you waiting for? Get up, be baptized, and wash your sins away, calling on his name. When I returned to Jerusalem and was praying at the temple, I fell into a trance and saw the Lord speaking. Quick, he said to me, leave Jerusalem immediately, because they will not accept your testimony about me. Lord, I replied, these men know that I went from one synagogue to another to imprison and beat those who believe in you. And when the blood of your martyr Stephen was shed, I stood there giving my approval and guarding the clothes of those who were killing him. Then the Lord said to me, go, I will send you far away to the Gentiles. Interestingly enough, this mob that was out of control, about to kill Paul, stops when Paul wants to speak to him. And Paul gives his testimony. He gives his testimony several times in the book of Acts. And he just tells them his whole story about how he was raised Jewish. He was taught from the finest teacher, and that he persecuted the church until Jesus appeared to him on the road to Damascus, and that he became a follower of Jesus then, and that he was in Jerusalem when he was called to leave, and everything's going well up until he says that Jesus called him to be an apostle to the Gentiles. And we'll pick it up tomorrow, but you're going to find out the crowd did not like that statement. They did not want the Gentiles saved. And so we'll leave it there, and we'll pick up Acts tomorrow right there. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.